Hey, Soraya, how's it going?
All right. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Can you
Right.
believe we're already in autumn?
Believe it or not, 2020 does feel kind of eternal, but
In some ways.
but in some ways, but autumn makes me think that winter and then spring and new days lie ahead. So look
Nice.
forward to it and adventure. And speaking of adventure
Yes.
and adventurous souls,
Yes.
why don't you let our listeners know what our focus is today?
Okay, well, I'm glad you used the word focus because we had an album focus series ways back where we did album focus episodes on the four primary bands of the Paisley Underground. And we
Right.
had an episode of the Bangles All Over the Place. We did the 3 o'clock Arrive Without Traveling.
Hmm.
Did Dream Syndicate Medicine Show, and
Yeah.
we did Rain Parade's Crashing Dream. But,
Yes.
but we only touched on four of the six Paisley Underground bands.
Okay, Jeff, you need to explain yourself because I'll go ahead. Tell us
So,
what you mean by six. We've been working under the presumption of four.
well, that's just four is what the people who uh, who determine what it is say it is. But have you ever heard of the term dreamers?
I
There,
have.
there's some of us out here that are called dreamers who think differently, and
Okay.
and I'm one of those. So, I like to include the Long Riders and Green on Red as part of the Paisley Underground, and we'll address that in a little bit. But
Yeah.
we wanted to do some album focus episodes on the Long Riders and eventually Green on Red. Today we're going to talk about the Long Riders' Native Sons album. So
Yes.
some consider Long Riders Paisley adjacent,
Yes.
and then there's me.
And you think,
They're part of the Paisley Underground.
well, there
And
you go.
I want to read a quote about that, but let's go ahead and get started.
Mm-hmm. Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme,
a podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a grooviar.
Let's get groovy. All right. But before we get started talking about the Long Riders, there was a couple housekeeping issues that I wanted to mention.
Sure.
This is episode 98, and I mentioned that we're now in autumn of 2020.
Right.
And you probably realize this, but I don't know if our listeners do. It was about 2 years ago now that we started this podcast, and we're coming up on episode number 100.
Bizarre, dude.
I know. We figured it'd be like 6 to 8 episodes. Coming up on 100. So a couple things with that. We've almost done one episode every week. Not quite. We took a couple breaks here and there. But coming up on episode number 100, we wanted to see if our listeners had any questions for us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
ask away.
Ask away. Ask me anything, AMA, as they say, right? So on episode number 100, which is 2 episodes from now, if we have any questions for us about anything about our podcast or about us personally or about our favorite whatever during our podcast episode adventures, ask away. And if you guys want to ask us anything, please ask away. We can be reached on email at paisleystagernr@gmail.com. You can contact us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. And also, if you want to send in a file, record yourself asking a question. And if it's not terrible, we'll end up putting it on our podcast and on episode number 100, which
That
is coming up.
sounded a lot worse coming out.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to celebrating 2 years and with a milestone number 100.
Crazy town.
Crazy town indeed. And also something that's new is we are now on Amazon podcast music. So you can listen to us via Amazon now since they are hosting podcasts. So
Yeah.
if, like me, you happen to own one of those devices, an Echo, I do not want to say her name because she's right near me. But if you say her name and say, play the podcast Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme, she will start playing episodes
That
on
is
that device.
so. That is so 1984.
I
Honest.
know. I know.
Whoa, a very big brother, but it's very cool.
Yes, and we're also on Spotify now, so you can
Yes.
listen to us on Spotify among other places, iTunes, Podbean, WordPress, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Last time I looked, there was like 20 different places. So if you want to hear us, which you probably are right now, you can hear. Oh, and YouTube. That's another new one for us. So our episodes are now on YouTube, most of which have a static image while the episode is playing. There's a few of them we've released with actual video, so
Right.
including our last one with Ronnie Barnett, which
Yeah.
if you want to see our mugs, you can do that. But today we're talking about the Paisley Underground group, the Long Ryders,
Yes.
and their classic album, Native Sons, which came out in 1984 on Frontier Records, which was released by Lisa Fancher on her label. We talked to her a while back. That was pretty cool. And we'll learn a little bit about this album as we go. But if you don't mind, Soraya, there's a quote that I wanted to read. Uh,
Please.
you had mentioned Sid Griffin's quote that's in the John Doe book.
Yes.
I have another quote here.
Please.
This was according to Tidal.com, Tidal.
Yes.
And Sid was asked, a number of bands from the 1980s LA scene, also known as the Paisley Underground scene, have recently reunited and released new material, talking about the 3x4 compilation last year, or the year before now. How did you relate to the term Paisley Underground back in the days? To which Sid responded, Michael Quercio of the 3 O'Clock coined the phrase Paisley Underground in an interview with the LA Weekly back in the day. No one in the press thought of it. The real Paisley Underground is and always was the Salvation Army, who became the 3 O'Clock, and of course the Rain Parade, the Bangles, and the Dream Syndicate. No one else, he says. You will note that these are the exact four bands who are included in the recent Yep Rock album of Paisley Underground bands doing other Paisley Underground bands material. So remember 3x4? That was great, right?
Yes.
But then he goes on to say, and this is really, really the crux of what he is what he meant to say in his response. Then the Long Riders and Green on Red were included, which was nice. After all, we were all friends. We all knew each other. We all attended the other band's gigs and played music that was at least vaguely related to the other act's music. So last week we talked about Danny and Dusty. So in addition to all these other things that he's talked about, knowing each other, attended each other's gigs, played music that was kind of in the same vein. I mean, 80, playing music in the 80s based on 60s music, that's about as close as it gets. As Ronnie mentioned, they're all pretty much different. But they also played on each other's albums to an extent, which we talked about last week with Danny and Dusty. But Sid goes on to say, as time went on, True West, way up in Davis, California, were added to the Paisley Underground, and Naked Prey out in Arizona were added to the Paisley Underground. And then half of the 60s oriented guitar bands in Southern California were Paisley Underground bands. It was really out of hand. The camaraderie of the original four Paisley Underground bands was diluted and then diluted even further. Bands were called members of Paisley Underground, and none of us in LA knew who on earth they were. So
Okay, this is where we get people saying, uh, "Oh my gosh, Opal? Opal's part of Paisley Underground." No, I mean we can talk about connections, yes, but I have to agree with Sid here. Okay, continue.
okay, the last paragraph, Sid goes on to say, wrapping it up. So originally, it was just the four bands I mentioned above and no one else. And yes, it was a real organic thing and not some baloney created by the media. To this day, to this second, I am fond of all of the bands above, very happy to be friends with them, and very aware of how lucky I was not merely to be in a popular band, but part of a popular, groundbreaking scene. One almost, I say almost, as influential as Memphis in 1954, Liverpool 1963, or New York City in 1977. It was a wonderful time.
Yes.
So I think it's conclusive that there were 6 bands in the Paisley Underground. I mean, it's in print. It just comes off the page.
Look, you and I can go around and around till the cows come home. And but Sid said it. 4 bands. 4 bands. Then obviously, they say, hey, this scene is not just these guys. The scene, there are other bands being included in this scene. But when you think seminal, the nucleus of it, I agree with Sid. 4. We can expand it. But when people but Sid's right. He goes, then people started throwing, a bunch of bands in there that weren't part of this scene. And people, Sid's got a point. It's like, if we didn't know who they were, how can they be a part of this scene that happened to be in LA at this particular moment? I have to agree with him. Yeah. So I don't know, Jeff. And I'm sure somebody's gonna say that I'm full of it or that you're full of it.
No, nobody's gonna say you're full of it. Everybody's gonna say I'm full of it.
Oh no. Trust me, because I went there with Opal. But anyways, look, we can't deny the value of the bands that were playing this scene, and we've heard so many stories of the crossing over. Sid shared a place. Didn't he share with Vicky Peterson?
Yes.
And so there's contact and they're friends, and the circles mix. So we can't deny that. We can't deny, and they shared so many things. And yes, I mean, look, it's undebatable. But I think you bring up a really good point, and that is, if we're going to talk Paisley Underground, we have to start talking about these bands that were also part of this scene, but don't get the same type of focus. And I mean, you and I are big Long Ryders fans, and Psychedelic Country Soul was a great album.
Absolutely.
It came out last year, and I mean, they've still got something to say. And we can agree on. But this album that we want to focus on today, I mean, Jeff and I have only picked 2 tracks each, and that was like literally trying to pick your favorite child.
That was hard.
Right?
Yes.
But if it's been a while since you've listened to this album, we hope that today's episode encourages you to go back, because this is a very, very good album, and not a bum track in the bunch.
Agreed.
All right, Jeff. So now that we've ticked off quite a few people,
sorry,
by amplifying the 4 to the 6, and I said what I said. Let's talk about Long Ryders. So let's talk about Native Sons. Why is it, in your opinion, this album so important?
The music was just so great, and it came at a time when most of this music came out, when what you heard on the radio was a lot of new wave or hair metal, which was all great too, no doubt about it, and certainly coming off the heels of arena rock too. So these independent bands just put out this music that was nothing like you were hearing. I mean, you would turn on the radio and you would hear Def Leppard, Photograph, great song, love it. You would hear Aha, another great song, right? So, and then you get these bands from Los Angeles just putting out this music that was like nothing you were hearing at the time.
Right.
And when I first heard Native Sons, which I think was my introduction to the band, they had a EP that came out before it, 10560, which is
Hmm.
really, really good. I highly recommend that. But I think Still Get By from Radio Tokyo. Go back and listen to our episode on Radio Tokyo if you want to
Yep.
hear how important that album is to me. But I followed it up by getting this debut album, and it was even more different than the rest of the Paisley Underground albums in that this had a little more country twang to it. Uh, uh, More so than, definitely more so than any of the other four bands. And it the melodies were there. I could hear 12-string jangly birds type influences there, so it was definitely had that 60s vibe. But the different vocal styles between Stephen McCarthy and Sid Griffin just made it very interesting because each of them would have their own songs, and it was just a blast to hear. Great guitar rock, great melodies, that little bit of country twang. I mentioned before that with the Danny and Dusty track that I picked, that it had that Sweetheart of the Rodeo's Birds era feel to it, and much like that Danny and Dusty track had that feel, so does Native Sons to me. So uh, just great music at a time when there was nothing else like it.
Right. Right.
And so, what about you? Do you remember when you first heard the album?
I do. And I remember at the time thinking, this isn't like any country album I ever heard. Right. But I remember at the time just thinking that. But, you know, as I've listened to it throughout the years, and that's because, it is and it isn't. It's a rock album, but it's got a lot of different things going on in it. This album goes hard, and it really shows us this diversity of the band's influences. But man, I mean, it's an album that you walk away from and you go, wow, like I need a couple more listens to kind of really dig into it. I mean, they get you hooked from the get-go, but it's just a different kind of album. And I mean, I took to it pretty quickly. So, but I liked it. I liked it from the first time I heard it. And when you think of the timing of it, it came out at a time when the other four bands around that time were really coming out with strong production at the same time. So it's like 84 was a good year. 83, 84 were just these years of,
Yeah.
intense quality music. And that's one of the things that I don't know, at least I'm grateful for. But
Yeah, absolutely. So in that title article on title.com that I was reading before from Sid Griffin, by any chance do you have that pulled up?
I do.
They also go through album by album, and Sid mentions a little bit about it. But by any chance do you have the Native Sons
Yeah,
stuff pulled up? So Sid gives a little bit of information on that. Do you mind sharing that?
sure. In summer 1984, Los Angeles hosted the Olympics. The public was warned frequently about traffic gridlock. The Long Ryders found out A&M Studio was available at a rock bottom rate, as there was concern no act would want to record during the tourist invasion of the Summer Olympics. Choosing the legendary Henry Louis as producer of Joni Mitchell, Flying Burrito Brothers, Neil Young, Leonard Cohen, we moved into A&M Studios before Herb Alpert had time to deposit our check and started work. Psychedelia was toned down, save the atmospheric close to the light, and country bluegrass and Sun Records rock and roll was emphasized. I Had a Dream made a great, great single in Europe, and Elvis Costello signed us to his Demon label in London. We were becoming an American answer to Rockpile, and soon Native Sons was the #4 album on the college radio / indie charts. Back then, this meant radio airplay, record sales, and positive reviews in every newspaper in the country.
That's crazy.
That's pretty awesome, though.
Yeah. I mean, a connection with Elvis Costello, who I know is in your top echelon, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Elvis is your guy. And working with the producer, I'm not familiar with Henry Louis, but being a producer of Flying Burrito Brothers and knowing the influences of the Long Ryders, they had to have been thrilled. And how funny that they got to record in A&M Studios. Interestingly enough, because the Olympics were going on in Los Angeles, that gave them an opportunity to get in there when they probably wouldn't have got in there otherwise. Let's be honest.
I love that part of the story. It's like, dirt cheap. Okay, let's go.
Yes. And the album, as Sid mentions, was either #4 here and maybe #1 in the UK. I remember reading, if it wasn't the album, it was the single I Had a Dream that made it
Right.
to #1 or #4. Either way, the album and the single were like in the top 5 in UK indie charts. So very cool. And this album, we can say Tom Stevens joins the band. So this is the first release with Tom Stevens on it, because he was not a part of 10561, their original EP. So anyways, lots of great music. 1984, Frontier Records. So many good songs. How did you narrow it down to 2? And which one do you want to play first?
Well, you made it easy because I had you pick first.
So that narrowed down.
So I said, okay, so I got some other ones. But I went with songs that I listened to over and over. And that's how I picked. And I think I picked 2 really good ones. And I think you picked some great ones too. So all right, Jeff, you're gonna go first.
I'm gonna go first. Okay. Well, I am going to pick one of 2 songs that my band at the time started playing. We tried to learn a couple songs off this album, and we would play them. So the band was originally called The Insignificants. I think I've talked about that before. Yes. We ended it with CAN''TS. So not only were we insignificant, but we were insignificant. We later changed the name because our parents said that was too negative, to 59 Senses, which was based on a sale that Carl's Jr. had, which was a hamburger place, and they had a sale on their Famous Star for 59 cents. So we changed the name of the band to 59 Senses and spelled it SENCES. So trying to play off like the 60s kind of feel, like 13th floor elevators, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Anyway, so we learned, I've got air quotes, 2 of the songs off the album that we would play, and we would play at parties and stuff in North San Diego County, kegger parties, we would call. Everybody go to the end of the cul-de-sac, and a couple people would bring a keg in the back of their trucks. We were all in high school, and one of the songs that we learned was this one. It was Run Dusty Run. And Soraya, I'm sure we sounded terrible, but we loved the song so much, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a song that would get our friends dancing, right? I mean, granted, most of them were drunk, but
hey man, that doesn't mean nothing.
Doesn't mean anything. But I still love the song, and it still brings back a lot of memories. So I had to go with it just for nostalgia reasons. I don't know if it's my favorite song on the album, but as you mentioned, there's not a bum track on the album, so you can't go wrong. I could blindly pick any two and love them, but this has that personal memory of 59 Senses trying to play trying to play songs. So this was it had to have been around that time, 1984, 1985. But this is the version, not by 59 Senses. This is the Long Ryders from Native Sons, Run Dusty Run.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are 59 Senses. Good night.
Good night. Hey, who took off with a keg?
Who unplugged our mics?
Yeah, that happened a lot too.
Oh my God. But see, like that song, I can totally get you guys just rocking out, getting people grooving. Easy.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Right, yeah.
That's why. Okay, so you have that Run Dusty Run, number 4 track.
Yes.
I picked the number 2 track.
Oh. Which, remember Ronnie said he's really interested in number 2 tracks in sequential order.
And let me tell you, this number 2 puts you on your butt. It is so stinking good. And I do want to add, Jeff and I are using the original track listing from the original 84 release.
Yes.
But as you may know or may not know, there are bonus tracks on re-releases from 87, 92, and 2011 have the deluxe reissue.
That's right.
And you did mention Radio Tokyo tapes.
Yeah.
And the song I picked is Still Get By. And there's a demo version of this on Radio Tokyo, which is beautiful, amazing. Yeah. And it was included in the 2011 deluxe reissue. So if you haven't heard it in a while, go pull out your Radio Tokyo tapes.
Please.
If not, pull out your reissue of Native Sons. And if you don't have either of those, it's available on iTunes.
Yes, and shame on you.
Shame on you for not having this in LP form. But an amazing rock song, Still Get By.
But just a little girl, she's not too cool right out of school. I would not believe it if she said it wasn't true. Hanging with the crowd, she's seen going up and down. Well, as the story goes, she still gets close from the lost and found. I am not afraid of being left with her, I said. Just a puppet on the string now, might as well be dead. On it goes, sleepy girl, wear your clothes. And when she cries, I hope that I can still get by. Still get by. Hope I can still get by. Hope I can still get by. Hope I can still get by. I am not afraid of being left with her, I said. But just a puppet on a string now, might as well be dead. On it goes, stupid girl, where's your clothes? And when she cries, I hope that I can still get by. Still get by. Hope I can still get by. Hope I can still get by. Hope I can still get by. Wow! Still get by. Hope I can still get by. Hope I can still get by. Hope I can still get by.
Woo.
Ooh, child.
There are so many elements of that song that are so good.
Can we talk about Greg?
Yes.
Dude, the drumming on this is ridiculous.
Yes.
He's so stinky good, but the guitar work, mwah. The
Yes.
vocals, mwah.
And
I
then
mean,
sit on that mouth harp.
dude,
And
Sid the Squid.
at the time. Yeah.
Ah, man.
Yes. Yeah. Such a
Dude,
great
no,
song.
there is nothing I don't like about this song.
Yes. I agree.
Okay, and tell me, Jeff, how you like them vocals?
Oh, so good. Yes. That sounds great. Yeah. When they come in with a
Oh, it's harmony. It's gorgeous. It's heaven.
yes, yes. And if you can't say that the Long Ryders weren't influenced by the 60s, when you listen to that part, I mean the harmonies alone, I mean they're definitely influenced from the 60s. And I'll add that this was the second song that 59 Senses would play. So Still Goodbye
Dude.
and Dusty Run. So yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm gonna give you a little info, okay? So we
Okay.
started off with your number one pick, Run Dusty Run. 2 minutes 24. Still Get By, 2:50. 2 minutes 50 seconds. I'm gonna go to my second pick because I want to end on yours, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Jeff and I have talked often about how powerful a song can be in a short amount of time. So notice, Run Dusty Run, boom. That's like a sucker punch, right?
Yes.
2 minutes, 24 seconds, Still Get By, beautiful song for number 2, 2 minutes 50. My next pick goes a little beyond 3 minutes. 3 minutes, 6 seconds.
Stick with us, Jim. From the JFK conspiracy. Yeah. We're
And
passing the threshold.
it is the amazing Sid Griffin song, Tell It to the Judge on Sunday.
Tell it to the judge on Sunday. Tell it to him, leave me alone. Tell it to the judge on Sunday, you can call him at home. Better get out of my sight, boys. Tell you I'm a busy man. Tell it to the judge on Sunday, and he'll do what he can. Now folks got fears that they want the law to set right. And they don't get settled by riding with hoods through the night. There'll always be people that pick you up after somebody's put you down. So give me a break and put back what you take while the law still ain't around. Tell it to the judge on Sunday. Tell it to him, leave me alone. Tell it to the judge on Sunday, you can call him at home. You better get out of my sight, boys. Tell you I'm a busy man. Tell it to the judge on Sunday, they'll do what he can. Come stomping in here like you own the joint, and that's wrong. You probably think I wanna hear your sad, sad song. Well, maybe sometime when I was younger, I put up with that swell. But I've been a jailer for 23 years now. I got no time to kill. Now I don't care what crimes you've done tonight. Nor do I care who's wrong or who's right. All I know is my life's been very hard. And the judge, he lives in this house with a big, big yard. Tell it to the judge on Sunday. 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 Tell it, 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 tell it.
Woo! Man, that Sid Griffin can write a song.
Yeah.
Jeff, this is the part that I love because of the change in tempo to kind of emphasize the point. You come a stomping in here like you own the joint, and that's wrong. You probably think, I want to hear your sad, sad song. But I love that low tempo, that whoo, you know, like you could almost imagine, somebody playing a violin.
Yeah.
Well, maybe sometime when I was younger, I'd put up with that swill, and then boom, switch. But I've been a jailer for 23 years now, and I got no time to kill. Boom! Like, I don't care. Shut your mouth and walk out. I mean, I've seen the Long Ryders perform this song a couple of times live, and it still gets me.
Yeah.
Still gets me. I enjoy this song a lot.
Yes. Yeah, me too. That was a great pick. Yeah. It's so outlaw-ish. It's right. I mean, the name of the band, the Long Ryders, is from an old Western, right? So
There you go. There you go.
So,
We started with the number 4 track, went to number 2, then Tell It to the Judge on Sunday is the number 7 track at 3 minutes 6 seconds.
yes.
Then Jeff, and I don't think there's a better way to end talking about Native Sons than with track 11, which is 3 minutes 50 seconds.
Yes.
And if I'm right, it's the longest
I think you're right.
No.
No?
There's one song that's a little longer, Too Close to the Light. But Jeff,
Oh.
what's your final pick?
So I went with the last song on the album. Interestingly enough, Tell It to the Judge on Sunday was one of 2 singles from this album. This other single was I Had a Dream, and that's my pick. So I'm picking the single from the album, and I just looked it up. It reached number 4 on the UK charts, and the album reached number 1 on the UK indie charts. So I Had a Dream, and I love the melodies, and I love the 12-string guitar on this. And the singing on it was just great. The first song I picked, Run Dusty Run, was a Sid song, but I had to focus on Stephen McCarthy.
Of course.
Yes. So we've already mentioned Sid, we've mentioned Tom, we mentioned Greg, but we cannot leave out Stephen McCarthy from this band. So not only as a great lead guitar player, but as a songwriter and lyricist and singer. I mean, these guys just double hit with great vocals.
Yes.
So had to focus on Stephen McCarthy. So
of course.
I Had a Dream, and listen to these 12 strings.
Beautiful.
12-string guitar part.
Tried so hard to explain the way things are, how quick they can change. But you'll never listen, just turn your head. Never heard a single word that he said. While it's true now that I'm not a saint, I felt pain when you lived the hate. Said it before and I'll say it again. Leave me alone, man, it treat me like a friend. Well, I had a dream last night. Everybody's laughing and everything was alright. Still some hope in sight, that was last night. Well, I had a dream last night. Nobody's crying, nobody's fighting. Still some hope in sight, that was last night. If it seems I sound like the rest, we're trying hard not to be too depressed. Once they take everything I've left, it's so easy. So if you're dreaming, I hope that you do. Wish for the best and hope that it comes true. Who knows what you'll leave when you're through? I had a dream last night. Everybody's laughing and everything was alright. Still some hope in sight, that was last night. I had a dream last night. Nobody's crying and nobody's fighting. Still some hope in sight, that was last night.
Now that's a way to end an album.
Whew.
There's a couple things I wanted to mention about the song. I should have mentioned that Sid Griffin is the one that plays the 12-string guitar, and then Stephen McCarthy comes over and plays. I think it's a Fender guitar, but he comes over and plays the chords, the more power chords. So, and that 12-string guitar that Sid Griffin plays on, I remember when we were at the Roxy seeing them, and I think I may have been knighted by that 12-string guitar.
You were blessed by it and knighted.
Yes, and
One and only Sid Griffin.
Yes, I do remember him playing the 12-string on that part as I was listening to it, and a great 12-string part that is. It made that song just very special. Definitely has that Birds feel to it. So
oh yeah,
and that end guitar part where they're both just going off, it's so much fun. So much fun to me. Just you could tell they're just both feeling it, and it comes across in the recording too. But I mentioned the Birds several times as an influence. If you read the credits of the album, the Birds member Gene Clark is actually included on this album, and adds some vocals to the track Ivory Tower, which we didn't play. But how cool is that they actually had a member from the Birds playing on this album? So yeah, I thought that was very cool too. And before we say goodbye and call it an episode, there's one thing on the back of the album. It says, "The Long Ryders wish success and happiness to all bands everywhere." And I thought that was kind of cool and touching. So, like the Long Ryders, I say I wish success to everybody that's listening to this podcast and those who aren't, and just wish health and happiness to everybody.
Yes, amen.
And as we mentioned before, we're coming up on our 100th episode. So if you're at all interested, please send us a file. If you have any questions, ask us anything. Or go ahead and email us at paisleystagerr@gmail.com. You can send the file there. You can also contact us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
There you go. And be a part of our 100th episode, because we wouldn't be here without you.
Absolutely not. We would have stopped at 6 or 8 episodes.
Jeff and I really don't have that much to talk about.
Exactly. But Native Sons, what an album. What an album.
Oh, I really hope this motivates people to go pick it up and put the platter on the record player.
Yes, or spin that disc or click that file. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Oh, and just as a quick footnote, I had a dream. There's on YouTube, there's a pretty good video of them playing live for a TV show in Europe, if I'm right. Go check it out.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, first of all, because it's just an awesome song, but two, the performance is fantastic by the band. And I don't know. I don't think we can thank Tom Stevens, Sid Griffin, Stephen McCarthy, and Greg Souders enough for just giving us this album, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And Stephen and Sid.
Yes, come visit us.
We want you on the show. All right. Mi gente, a groovear.
Groove on, Paisley people. That was fun.